Hello guys, welcome to another session of Hacker Earth webinars, and I have with me a lot of people today, a lot of screens you will be seeing, a lot of smiling faces, a lot of beautiful faces. I'm the only odd one out, the only guy out here, but let me tell you, these women that I have today are really interesting and they know a lot about recruiting and engineering skills as well. So I'll start off with a small presentation about Hacker Earth and what we do as an organization, post which we'll shift to the actual session that is about bridging the gap between recruiters and engineers. Starting off right now, I'll just introduce you guys to the platform. The platform has a questions tab on the right side, and you can ask your questions to us and we'll be happy to take them at the end of the session. So if you're able to see the questions tab, then maybe a few of you can write yes in that so that we know that you found that questions tab there. Okay, so I have a lot of yeses coming in, so thank you guys. I'll start off with a presentation about Hacker Earth now. So today's session is all about bridging the gap between recruiters and engineers. And I'll start off with a very good fact, a new fact that is not known by many people, but let me tell you, the most valued global currency is tech skills these days. And organizations are actually betting a lot on this currency to drive innovation as well as growth in their organizations. Be it any size company, be it a big company like a Netflix, Facebook, Google, Amazon, Apple, or a new age startup like Oculus or Airbnb, to a very, I would say, not a company, IT-based company, but a company like FedEx or a Walmart Labs, all require engineers at the end of the day. They're moving towards automation, and automation requires engineers. Now is the tough part. It is very hard to identify and hire talented developers. I mean, you can get a lot of talent out there, but everyone wants the best. And let us face it, the best is the actual best, and that is what you want for your organization to grow. Technical recruiting is really hard. As per our stats, we see around 50 to 60 days to close a particular position, 10,000 human hours to spend in screening, 6 rounds of assessments to actually hire a person. And the last fact, a very shocking fact, a very big thing, the average cost to hire these days in the US is $30,000 per developer. That's like massive. A few challenges that recruiters these days basically face, I would say. Assessing the candidates while saving costs, identify top candidates accurately, understand the expectation of a candidate. A very important fact, a lot of recruiters these days are facing an issue when it comes to understanding what the engineers actually expect from today's market or role. And the last one, battling with remote hiring, another big problem with recruiters these days. So this is where we come to your help, Hacker Earth. So we provide you with a developer assessment platform that helps you assess the developers the right way in order to reduce your time to hire, deliver a great candidate experience. So we are a company that was founded by a couple of engineers, a couple of developers, let me say that way, and they know what a developer wants when it comes to practicing or even giving an assessment or maybe even a coding exam. This platform helps you in improving your quality of hire as well as scale your hiring across roles. This is the platform at a glance. It is an AI-powered platform in which you can either create a test of your own, or we have a question library of close to 13,000 questions from which you can build up your test. We have robust proctoring settings in which you can actually see what the candidate has been doing when during the assessment and he has no friends around to help him in the particular test, or let's say we even record their keystroke so that you can at the end of the day look at how he proceeded when it came to a particular problem. Remote video interviewing, another big thing that is tough when it comes to recruiting, that the candidate might be halfway across the globe and but he's too good in his skills and you at the end of the day want to video interview him. So we provide that function to you as well. You can conduct remote video interviews. And the last one, a very important thing, analytics. These days, everything is driven by data, and analytics is the most important thing when it comes to proving to your hiring manager that the person that you have chosen as a candidate potential joinee for your company is the best. We share an in-depth analysis of the candidate performance, and it will surely help you choose the best. This is the Hacker difference, a few customer testimonials, and I mean the customers have said that it reduces the time in hire by 50% and increasing the quality of hire by almost 60%. Few testimonials there. And these are a few customers that we have been serving across the globe. And we would love to see your company among these logos. And if you're looking to hire the best developers, assessing them the right way, then Hacker Earth is there for you. So for today, we have Mickey Johnson, who is the co-founder of Job Portraits, and Lamya Alaoui, who is again a founder of CoachMya. And I'll make them the main highlights now, and I'm done talking now. So over to you guys, and hope you have a great session.
Thank you, Arbaz. Hello, everyone. I'm Lamya, and Mickey and I, when we were prepping for this webinar, we give it a lot of thought, and one of the patterns that we notice in our daily jobs and part of the conversations that we always have is how recruiters and engineers are kind of speaking two different languages, and there are a lot of challenges over there. So we decided to bring in both perspectives to today's webinar, and I'll let Mickey give a little bit more details about that. I've been in the recruiting industry for the last 15 years. I worked almost everywhere in the world, mainly in North Africa, Middle East, Europe, and here. And I've conducted over 3,000 interviews within the last 5 years, at least. So this is my background, and I'm handing it to Mickey.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lamya. Yeah, and so I'm the co-founder of Job Portraits, which is a employer branding studio. We're based in San Francisco, and so that means that we help companies that need to hire for really competitive roles sort of tell their story really well to candidates. So that might look like a careers page or really great job descriptions or blog posts about, you know, the team or the people that are hiring. And so in my work, we worked with over 80 high-growth startups. And then I also have interviewed probably at least 100 engineers, not for jobs, but for stories, right? So I spend a lot of my time talking to especially engineers and developers about what they want from their job, why they like their job, why they left their last job. So I think we try to really bridge that gap between how engineers think and how recruiters think. So that's why I think this is a really great topic for all of this. So the first thing that we wanted to do is just to introduce you to our special guests here. So Rebecca and Dixie, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Rebecca's a recruiter, Dixie is a developer and also hiring manager. And so what we thought is that we would start off with having them sort of explain their experience of the hiring process right now, and maybe what's frustrating about it, and then what could be better. So I guess maybe Rebecca, if you want to start off and just talk a little bit about, first introduce yourself, and then yeah, I mean, maybe just tell us, from your perspective, like what does hiring engineers right now look like, and maybe just start with what's kind of frustrating about it. Help us understand your day-to-day, life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I've really been looking forward to this conversation. Also selfishly, because I always love being able to get into an engineer's brain. So excited, Dixie, to hear what you have to say today. My name is Rebecca. I've been at Qualtrics for the last 5 years. I've helped grow the company from a team of 500 employees to 3,000 over the last few years. Our engineering team, when I started, had 40 individuals, and now we have almost 500. So there's been a lot of work done. So I've talked to hundreds and thousands of different people, seen lots of different resumes, and I've had the experience or the opportunity to hire from entry level to very senior positions. So across the board, the experience is very different. And on my recruiting team, because Qualtrics is an experience management platform, we care a lot about the experience our candidates have. And I think that when I thought about that candidate experience, I thought a lot about what makes it harder for my team to provide a great candidate experience. And that's what led me to kind of thinking through some of my frustrations with the hiring process. For me personally, what I've found is the more that I can understand about what a candidate wants, an engineer wants, from compensation, of course, is always nice, but more than that, what kind of a role they want, what do they want their team to look like, what do they want their environment to feel like, what kind of opportunities or challenges are they driven by, the more transparent a candidate can be with me, the more successful I am at being able to be honest about what we have to offer. So I think that's where I would start off at, in saying that the biggest frustration for me is not being able to get inside of my candidate's head enough.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'd actually love to ask just a little bit more too for any developers on the call, like take us through like the process of recruiting a little bit for you, because I'm not sure people understand like how many different stakeholders you're trying to deal with on your end, and like, you know, just the speed with which you're trying to move and how many people you're talking to and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, on my end, to fill one position, I'm working with a hiring manager, and Dixie, it's great that you've had that experience as a hiring manager, so you can also speak a little bit to what that experience is like. But a hiring manager is going to have a list of expectations that are going to be very specific, right? And then my job as a recruiter, obviously, is to go out and find those candidates either through referrals or sourcing online, looking at different channels, and then obviously looking at online applicants. And so there are, thousands of people that apply for one position, and then my responsibility is then to take what I think are the closest matches to what the hiring manager has explained to me and bring those back to this hiring manager. And then once the hiring manager, we were aligned, then we're able to start interviewing. So I do phone screens with individuals, and then from there they do a technical coding assessment. This is how it is at Qualtrics. It's pretty similarly laid out for a lot of other developer roles, but there'll be a technical assessment, and then there'll be an on-site assessment. And then at Qualtrics, because we care a lot about employee experience, we care a lot about the cultural fit of the individuals. And feedback we've also received from engineers specifically is that we also don't want to make the interview process or your work experience feel like it's just another developer, another person submitting code to build our product. We really want to make sure that your values, your ideas are valued, that you have the opportunity and autonomy to be able to build and create and develop here at Qualtrics. And so that's a big part of the conversation we have before we actually make a hire. So to go back to your original question, talking about the stakeholders that are involved, I have hiring managers. I have a team of individuals the candidate will be working with day to day. And then I also have our executive leadership team and our engineering leadership team who wants to make sure that the ideas and impact of this individual are really going to help benefit the rest of the team that exists, that we build a better product, and that we think more about our clients and our customers. So for me to be able to hire one person, I'm working with thousands of candidates who apply, hundreds of candidates who interview, and then probably a team of at least 3 to, if not 5, 10, or 15 individuals who want to hire that person internally, and managing expectations between all of those sides is a challenge for sure, especially at a high growth company like Qualtrics. We have a lot of positions to hire for. So even if you as a candidate feel like the role that you're hiring for may not match perfectly to what you're looking for in your next role, there's probably almost 100% guaranteed there's a role at Qualtrics that will match if it's not the one we're talking about right now. So if we start to consider another role, then that's another 5 to 15 people that I talk to be able to make sure that there is a match. So there's a lot of conversations that I'm navigating through just to be able to make sure that we provide the best experience we can for one candidate.
Yeah, and I think go ahead, Lamya.
Oh, should I comment on that if that's all right? So maybe I'll give a short synopsis, and then I'll maybe add some comments just from my end. So I've worked in the technology field both from a designer perspective, or started as a designer, and then switched over into a manager role, kind of both in the hardware and software space. And I've recruited candidates worldwide, like in almost every culture where there are, IT or engineering candidates to hire. And some of the same struggles of like the internal team and the high emphasis on culture and cohesion. But what I would say, maybe to offer a perspective from the hiree perspective, because I always try to put myself in their shoes as well, I've seen that the hiring process often leads to the best candidates falling out at the beginning. Because if they're not following the movement and they're unclear about the process, there's so many positions and so much ability to say, oh, I have a lot of positions within the company where I could put you or slot you. People kind of want to know what their journey is going to look like. So I've felt that as a person being hired, when you don't fill that in the beginning, you will start to look for other companies immediately. So I try and focus a lot with the candidates on making sure there's a prescribed journey, because we're also getting hundreds of candidates for an individual role. and making sure they understand what the journey looks like and that it's pretty self-evident how the process is going to flow. Because otherwise, we're getting B players like almost immediately, because the A players, they've got so many options. So I find it very important to explain inside of the company before we even post a position that we're very careful in making sure that position indicates to the candidate where we're trying to fill in the team. Like things where here's what we have on the team and here's what we're looking to expand into, and making that evident for the candidate at the beginning, because otherwise you can lose people in the motion.
So Dixie, talking about the importance of describing the day-to-day life for a role, today from the engineering perspective, how was it? What was your personal experience when you were interviewing with recruiters? I know that you have been switching lately jobs. So what was that experience, and can you give us a little bit more details?
Yeah, like oftentimes the interface to the hiring manager was too generic, or to the recruiter was too generic. They really weren't able to get very quickly at the specifics. It just didn't get you there fast enough. And so you really had to feel like you loved that company, and that, like really you had to know something about the company almost from a marketing perspective to want to continue with that journey, because you feel like, okay, I'm talking to someone who doesn't know the specifics of the position, and there's 2 or 3 hurdles to get through before you get to somebody who you can actually talk with and connect with, like the hiring manager, where you would know that you have a fit and they have a fit. So from coming from the engineering side, a lot of times I felt like you're going to look at the company and the mission of the company and the mission of what they're trying to accomplish and sell yourself on that to continue with the hiring process. Because there were these barriers to get to the right person to talk to from a technical perspective and understand what the technical needs were. I could go take an assessment and it would give me that first pass of, are my skills sufficient? But I want to know, what is that team like that I'm going to be working with? Who are they? What are their mission and objectives? And if you can't get that filling very quickly in the process, you're basically going on how you feel about the company, and being sold on what they're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd love this to be a little bit of a conversation too. Like, I'm curious, Rebecca, how do you manage that, as a recruiter, trying to get those kind of specifics, right? When you're not a technical person, or getting them to the right technical person they can talk to.
Yeah, this is a real challenge. I mean, I think Dix, you summarized it really well, because as I'm listening to your experience, I mean, I feel your pain, right? It's like, I would love to get my hiring managers in front of every candidate that applies at the beginning. You get them talking, you get them enthusiastic and engaged. That's just not realistic in terms of scaling, right? And I'm sure, as you as a hiring manager know, you also don't necessarily want to talk to every candidate who applies. So I think for me, from a recruiter standpoint, what's really important to our team is to be able to educate our recruiters to be as close to their hiring teams as possible. So we want to make sure that, so I have been able to spend a lot of time working with my hiring managers and dig into the details about what are these projects that you're working on? What are the challenges that your team faces? What is the culture of your team like, right? These questions that it's great, Dixie, you have, because I feel like that's what engineers want to know about. And so we do spend a lot of time on the recruiting part, really learning a lot of technical aspects of the job. And I've learned a lot about scaling and microservices and architecture and lots of things that I never ever, I don't think about or use in my day to day. But what's really rewarding to me as a recruiter is when I have an interaction with a candidate who is clear about what they do want in their next role, and I have enough specifics, or at least knowledge, understanding, to honestly tell them, yes, we do have a position that's going to align with you, and I know my team well enough internally that I know that the next call I can set up with that candidate is somebody on the team who's working on something similar and can kind of vibe back and forth with this candidate about about the things that they're passionate about. And so that's when I talk about transparency. Sometimes I don't know everything there is to know about development and software, but I do know my teams really well, and I know the resource and the person that I can connect you with to learn more about it. So the more that candidate can share with me what they want and be a little vulnerable and transparent earlier on, the more power that gives me to connect them with the right person early on in the process.
Sure, yeah. And I wonder, Dixie, like, since you're, more experienced, like as a candidate over time, have you learned things that you feel like help you connect faster with the right people or share the right information? Or do you see candidates that are really good at getting what they need from recruiters? Is there any advice there?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I mean, definitely having an idea of what your next goals are and really having that firmly in place before you start looking for that next role. Like my advice, I guess, to engineering candidates would be there's a lot of jobs and a lot of availability for your next move, but you've got to become really clear about what you want to get out of it. And, you'll get approached by recruiters, but you still need to have that message. So I think it's important for engineers to have that thought process, at the forefront as they're going through their career journey. Like you're the owner of your career. So you really want to take that ownership and make sure that you're positioning yourself well in that next opportunity and ask the questions, like be transparent about things you want to learn and do, as well as the skills you have. And make sure that's really transparent to the recruiter so they can let you know if that opportunity is really fitting with where you want to be next.
Yeah. And I'm just curious, since I think we have a lot of, recruiters and, people that are hiring on this call. Dixie, do you have any just like really big pet peeves or just like really frustrating things that you see over and over again from recruiters?
Yeah, like sometimes you do see a lot of the selling process. And I think, it doesn't play well to the engineering audience. They're really more about, kind of the nuts and bolts of what the experience is going to be like to work at the company. And so certain things that I would say you could change slightly in that selling process is to be more just transparent about, like, again, what we've spoke about before. What is the day-to-day life like, in the company? Like, how does the person get feedback? How do they interface with other team members? Like, just those, working details. That really works well for a candidate, but trying to sell outside of that doesn't always work well, because it may come across as like, okay, they have a problem they haven't told me about. Because the engineering mind is very analytical. We're going to look right away for, like, what are the things they're not telling me? So you have to be very transparent about, the details with an engineering candidate.
Yeah, I want to
absolutely. Yeah, please go ahead.
I want to jump on that because I think that's that's definitely been my experience, right? I think when you talk about the analytical mindset, and it's like, well, what are you not telling me? You're glossing and painting this really beautiful picture, and I want to know what the real deal is, right? And I think, but that's also that's very much how I am too, right? It's like if I'm going to go and try to buy a new car or make a very big decision, and making a new career shift is a very big decision. Being empathetic and being able to think about, this person is uprooting from their team and from their projects and from their career to come and join a company that they know nothing about. And for me to paint all the wonderful things, no company is perfect, right? And I think for me to be able to say our company is perfect, obviously you're going to be skeptical about that. If I'm trying to buy a new car, I'm going to be skeptical when you tell me that it's the best on the market, it's the safest and the cheapest, and you know what I mean? So I'm going to want to do my own research, and I want to respect that from my candidates to allow them to do their research. I think I guess the opposite viewpoint of that, and this goes back to knowing your goals and like firmly deciding what your goals are. One of my frustrations as a recruiter is when I feel that I am being used as their preliminary research, right? Like they're coming to talk to my company and talking to me because they're not sure where they want to go next, and they're weighing their options out. And it's very clear to me pretty early on in the process if an engineer has or has not clearly decided what they want their next move to be. And that is really hard for me because, again, if you don't have your goals clearly aligned, or you can't be transparent with me about what you want, then I can't help you get what you want if you don't know what it is. And that's what brings me the most amount of joy in my job, is aligning somebody to their next career move that's perfectly aligned with what their next career goal is, and it gets them really excited. And if you don't know your next career goal, then I'm really kind of lost, and I'm not going to be the best partner for you.
Yeah, and I think that's really true for engineers to understand, is that it's an interaction with a person. And if you really want to get the most from that interaction, it's best to like write down what those goals are, be very focused before you get on the phone with that person, because it definitely has, I can say from the hiring perspective and hiring engineers. That slightly negative feeling if you're on the other side of the phone and you feel like that person is just, okay, I've got 16 different things I can do, and I'm trying to eliminate you from one of those 16. So we always have to remember these are people that we're interacting with, and we're trying to establish a rapport, because when you establish a rapport, you get the best information flowing between the two parties, and you can accomplish your goals. And I think sometimes engineers forget about that because we can be very specific, like, getting down into the details immediately without establishing the rapport. So it's good to kind of establish that rapport a little bit with a recruiter, because a recruiter is a people person. They're used to establishing this rapport, and I think it's important for engineers to remember that. You're talking to a person. Try and take the first minutes of the call to establish some rapport, do a little bit of research about the company, do a little bit of homework, and make sure you have that groundwork before you start delving into the details, so the other person feels inclined to share with you. Especially because most of these interviews are over the phone, over a video. Like, you really want to make sure that you're taking the extra effort to establish that rapport because of that.
Yeah, I really quickly, sorry. Oh.
Sorry, so jumping on what Dixie said, engineers and recruiters, for working with both of them and being a former recruiter, there is clearly a disconnect at some point, because, as you said, Dixie, engineers are more detail-oriented. They have a lot of structure. They always put things in a framework, and sometimes it needs to fit in a very specific box. The recruiters, on the other hand, are people. So they talk, they ask how your weekend was, and their main goal is to actually support you in your job search. And often what I've noticed is that recruiters, sometimes they're in that role because of the human interaction. So, and the disconnect creates some frustrations here and there and challenges. Now, what would be the ideal interaction from a recruiter perspective and from an engineer perspective for you guys? Rebecca?
Yeah, this is a perfect summary, I think, and I think it's so fun to see those. That's what's so fun about this job too, is that we see so many different types of people and personalities, and being able to come to go through the same hiring process and come to the same outcome of being able to hire them no matter their background. But an ideal process for me is again a lot of that building trust early on, and that's very hard to do. I know, because you've got to, as a candidate, share a lot of information with me for me to be able to compromise, to compromise with you and negotiate. So an ideal situation for me is where I'm able to allow that candidate to be themselves right from the very get-go. And if they want to tell me more about their projects and they want to get into the technical weeds later, then that's totally fine. I need to be prepared for that kind of a conversation interaction and knowing who I can help them talk with later on in the process. I also want to make sure that they feel like they understand the company mission and the team's mission, and that's something. And I would like to know more so if the candidate is motivated by a mission or by team culture or by the size of the company. So helping a candidate really understand to really prioritize the importance of the characteristics of the job they're about to take. That would be ideal for me at the very beginning, because that also builds trust from my side as a recruiter to know what my candidate values. And then throughout the process, for me to be able to trust my candidate, that I know that they're going to raise a red flag when they feel like they had an odd interaction with somebody, or when they feel like their values are no longer aligning with what they're learning about my company, or when they're feeling like they're being sold, right, instead of learning about the company. And that those are hard things, I think, to be cognizant of when you're going through the interview process and you're trying to bring your best self to the table, and you don't necessarily think through why you're feeling off in a few different pieces of the interview process. So I guess this is a long way to say I would love, an ideal process would be me really being able to kind of brain share with my candidates earlier on and throughout consistent touch points in the interview process.
And I can speak, I think, from the candidate side. Probably the ideal process would really be kind of clarity in how the hiring process is going to happen. Like, if it's a linear process and there are certain steps in that process, what they look like. because again, I'm, coming from that standpoint of I need some structure or framework to place myself within and kind of know where I'm at in the process. So kind of just knowing at each step in the process, kind of where I'm at and what the next steps are. And if there is a question that I have that is more technical, how to get access to that and when it's appropriate. Because sometimes I think there's this uncertainty about, okay, we're still in this first phase of evaluation, or are we, moving into the phase where it is going to be available for me to ask some of the technical questions I want to ask, from a hiring manager. And I think a lot of engineers want eventually in the process, if they're going to continue in the process, to know when they would speak to someone who would be the hiring manager. And so just kind of managing those expectations is something that, I think would be ideal from a candidate perspective.
Wonderful. Those are great. Well, I think this is a great segue for us to move into some of the advice that Lamya and I kind of set up. We have a pretty short, simple deck. I'm sort of validated to see that I think a lot of our advice has already also been sort of talked about here. So we can sort of, run through it. I wanted to give us a chance to ask the question that I forgot at the beginning, but our buzz, if that's something you can put in. I think we just wanted to know a little bit more about the attendees here. And if you guys can let us know sort of, are you, students or recruiters or developers? We'd love to just kind of curious about that too.
Yes, so I'll launch the poll right now. So I'll request everyone who has joined us to vote, and you can vote only one option because you might be only one of the following. So also to let you guys know that this session is being recorded, and you guys will receive a recording of the session for your reference in the next 24 hours or so. So if you miss out on something, you want to share this interesting, great webinar with a colleague of yours who might have not been able to register for this session, you can surely share the link with them of the recording. So I guess we'll close the poll now. If anyone's left, you have 10 seconds to poll, and 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. I guess everyone has polled. So I'll just give you the stats. We have 85% people who are recruiters, another 5% who are students and engineers, and the rest we have around 8% others as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks. That's really helpful. So let's see. I'm going to share my screen and go through this deck real quick. Can you all see, is that like full screen advice for talking to engineers?
Yes, so we can see the screen full. And also we have a couple of questions, I guess. We'll take them at the end, or do you guys want to take them right now? I have one important question, I would say a question that was amongst the conversation that you guys were having. So it's about, do you feel that during an initial screening call with the candidate, it is important to talk about the company history and culture?
Does anybody want to take that one?
I'm going to start with that. I think that from my perspective, it is, because it's an important element of how the person will see themselves fitting into the culture. It's a very important early question. So I think that it is. I think that with engineers, it does need to be positioned around the specifics of the working environment, because if you just bring out generic things about we have a great culture and this is how that looks and here's the talking points about our culture, it may not get into what they're really asking, which is, how is it going to feel like to work in the company? Like, what is my daily work life going to look like in the company? But I think those things can be important, because the candidate, aside from the technical fit, wants to understand what the work life looks like, what the environment looks like within the company.
Yeah,
but I think also Rebecca also.
Yeah, I agree. I think what's challenging in technical recruiting is there are so many companies that are hiring. There's so many positions and so many companies that have great culture and are, there's not a wrong choice in a lot of ways, right? There's a lot of great options out there. And so I think when I talk to candidates, what I like to highlight about Qualtrics are not only what our company values are, because that's important to know, but also what are the different types of teams we have? What are the different products you could work on? What does your impact look like from the extent that I can explain it, right? So if you were to come to Qualtrics and you were to work on one of our, product lines that helps improve or impact our employees or our customers, what kind of reach does that have? And I think that's something that I try to highlight that sets us apart in terms of how your work will actually impact other people, because I kind of assume that you're going to have a great culture no matter where you go. And so I want to make sure that you understand kind of what your impact looks like as part of our company vision.
Yeah. I think the other thing I've really seen too is that I think we tend to think like there's like good culture and bad culture. And what we've seen is like, sure, there are some sort of toxic cultures, but most of them are good for the right kind of person, right? So it's also about like, what are you looking for? Do you want an office where everyone's pretty heads down and it's quiet and people have their headphones in? Or do you like an office where people are like up and talking to each other constantly and like communication is really important? So trying to figure out like what are the specific things that you really care about? Is it about how decisions get made or how many people have to be involved in that decision process, and how fast you can move or how many meetings you have in a day or things like that? Because yeah, like you said, there's a lot of great cultures out there. They're just different. So let's see. Okay, I'm going to jump into this presentation and I will try to go through quick because I do feel like these questions are like actually what's really kind of great about all of this. So just some quick advice here. So the very first thing I know we already heard, and I can't see anybody's faces since I'm sharing, but like Dixie and Rebecca, if you want to jump into any of this, but I think this thing about selling, right, is that I think what we've always heard is that developers and engineers, like they mostly want the facts, and they have that analytical mindset, and so they're really sensitive to anything that feels like sort of marketing and selling, and so getting used to just kind of, I even say just like take the exclamation points out of all of your emails, right? Like all the hyperbole, talking about we're the best and we're amazing and like all that, like just take the adjectives out, take the exclamation points out, like just get down to the details and the specifics as fast as you can. So speak to what matters. I think this is also really about, what are the things that matter to engineering candidates? There's a great poll that came out from Stack Overflow recently, as far as like what engineers care most about. So I'll just read it real quickly, but the top is the languages, frameworks, and technologies they'd be working on. Second is office environment or office culture, which we were just talking about. The third is flex time or a flexible schedule. This is one that I think a lot of companies forget to talk about and we know is hugely important to candidates these days. And then the fourth is opportunities for professional development. So, we always say like you should have all four of those things in the very top of your message, right? Or at the top of your conversation with someone. The rest of it is sort of nice to have, but I think people really care about those. Do your research. Every engineering team we've ever worked with has like a stupid stuff recruiters say Slack channel. And I think a lot of this is, I know Lamya is going to talk about internal and external recruiters. I think a lot of this is coming from, people that maybe don't understand the company as well, but it's really important that I've heard of engineers where they were being recruited for the company they were already at. Or I actually know the guy who wrote like the Django framework, and someone like reached out to him and was like, hey, it looks like you know a good amount about Django. Like, we'd love to have you over here. Like, just because once you lose that trust with people, it's gone, and people talk to each other, right? Like developers talk to each other. And so if you come in with like the wrong question or the wrong technology or framework, it's really hard to come back from that. Personalize. So, as I think we all know, like top engineers are getting dozens of emails a week, some of them a day. I've seen research that says that a little bit of personalization actually doesn't do much compared to no personalization. But a lot of personalization can get you 2x or 3x the response rates to your outreach. So, and we've heard this too. We do candidate UX interviews to understand how candidates think. And And we know that people say, it's like, oh, well, why did you agree to talk to this company? It's like, well, look, they had like they'd really done their research. They really knew something about me. It felt like they wanted me, not just any developer out there. And I think that goes a huge, huge way. Be honest. So again, like that analytical mindset of like, what are you not telling me? If you can actually talk about some of the challenges, if you can talk about what's not done, and what happens when things break, it actually builds a lot of trust, and it kind of lets that part of the mind relax. That's like that what are you not telling me part of the brain, and then you can have kind of a more meaningful conversation quickly. And then the other thing I think that just to remember about is really kind of checking for bias. We all have our own biases and our own assumptions. And I see a lot of even just like language that might turn people off that recruiters don't realize. There's a tool called Textio that you can actually use to check and see if your language is like gendered in certain ways or biased in others. But I think the low tech version of this is just if you have like an email or a job description or something like that, like run it by really different people, right? Like run it by a woman and a man, run it by people from, different races or different countries they're from, or different languages to make sure that you're not sort of saying something you don't mean to say. And then, as always, if you want to know more, like go talk to an engineer. I really think for recruiters, doing your own sort of UX research with engineers and understanding like what do they hate, what are they seeing, is you such a great step up. And then Lamya, I'll hand it over to you for advice talking to recruiters.
Absolutely. So next would be a bit of context. Agency versus in-house recruiters. Those are two different words, two different types of recruiters. Engineers deal with both. And it's two different types of interaction. So one of the first things that you will likely notice about agency recruiters is their aptitude to sell. And what we said earlier in the conversation is engineers often don't feel okay with that. So, but with the aptitude for sale, it means that agency recruiters can also help you get in the right company, the one that you want to get in, or the right role with the right challenges. Because sometimes one of the things that engineers won't share with recruiters is what type of challenges they want to work on. They will say specific things about, hey, this is the technology that I'm an expert in. This is the type of companies I want to work in. But engineers, their biggest passion is building solutions and working on challenges. So this is something that for both agency and in-house, you need to be extremely upfront about. This is what I'm looking for. If you're being hired just to do what you've been doing in your previous role, it doesn't make any sense. Now, for the in-house recruiters, the story is a bit different because their goal is actually find candidates who will be the right person for the company in the long term. And for that, they will be focused on filling multiple positions. They always have in the back of their mind, keeping the employee turnover a little bit on the low side to a minimum, which is quite different from the agency where they will probably just match. So to talk to both of them, be extremely clear about your the challenges that you like to work on, your experience, and keep in mind that the in-house will try to find a balance between the company and what you want as a candidate, where the agency, they will submit your application to several companies and see it's a numbers game basically. So one will be straight to the point, very technical. The other one there will be a lot of exploration, and the process takes a little bit longer. Next, it's something that Rebecca said and I totally can relate to that, which is be clear about your goals. It's just be extremely clear about it, meaning that we're not there to do research. We cannot help you clarify things sometimes because you need to know where you are now, where you want to be. So you need to take the time to understand the needs of the industry, learn how to promote yourself, not sell yourself, but promote yourself. So a lot of engineers, they have a pretty wide skill set, yet only a portion would be relevant to the jobs you're applying for. So highlight what's needed for the role you're applying for and make sure that you're extremely clear about what are your expectations, what you're bringing to the table. You might be proud of a lot of things. Everyone has accomplishment that they are proud of, but that's not necessarily relevant to what the recruiter is looking for. And this is why you need to do a bit of research. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges for recruiters and engineers when they're working together, is that they have two opposite expectations. And because you have an engineer who's extremely proud of what they're doing, which is normal, we're just human beings, and you have a recruiter who's like, I need you to be more specific. So this is one of the other thing is your social media. So engineers, their LinkedIn profiles are usually very structured. There are a lot of details, but then they neglect a tiny portion, which is your picture. Now, there is an eye tracking technology that was used by the ladders. It revealed that recruiters, on average, they spend 19% of their time while on the LinkedIn profile simply looking at the picture. So that's something that might seem trivial, but again, we're human beings. Dixie was saying you're dealing with people earlier, so keep that always in the back of your mind. Now, the next one is show them who you are. When you're interviewing, I always say it's a two-way street. The company is interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them. And recruiters usually get three types of extremes when it comes to candidate. So we have the overly professional, we have the over appeasing, and then we have the skeptical job applicants. So those who think that recruiters suck a big time. And recruiters, unfortunately, have sometimes a bad reputation, and it's kind of spill on the ones that are really care about the candidate experience from A to Z. So just make sure that recruiters, whether you like them or not, sometimes are the only way to the opportunity. And when you're shutting down or not sharing who you truly are, it's just not going to work. Because if it's not a fit, they don't know what your expectation, what do you value the most, what do you like to work on, what you're passionate about, and you take the job anyway. It's not a fit. You will be searching to escape their environment in the next month or so. And we know that here in the Silicon Valley, the average tenure is about 14 months, which is, for me, mind-blowing, coming from a culture where people say at least 3 to 4 years. And it's the same even in Europe. So here, 14 months is just extremely short. And from the operation or talent perspective, there is a cost to it. And I think that people who are on the HR side will understand what I'm talking about. When you lose someone that fast, there is a cost to it. And what the engineering teams also need to understand, that you're losing time working on something that you're not passionate about. And one of the ways to do it is be open about who you are and what you love to find the right role for you. The next piece is make your story easy to repeat. When talking to recruiters, they're in between. They're the link between you and the hiring manager. So what would be helpful is having a structured, easy, and ready to retell story about you. Because giving the recruiter something they can repeat easily is important. The best thing that can happen for you as a candidate would be just getting off the phone and having that recruiter extremely excited and go see the hiring manager and say, there is someone you have to talk to. But in order to do so, they need to be able to repeat the story that you just told them. So make it easy. Again, include elements that are extremely important to you, what makes you unique, what makes you the perfect person for that job, for that team, and why you are the person the hiring manager needs to hire. Finally, my favorite part when talking to recruiters, ask questions at all times. It's a two-way street. Don't think that you're not supposed to. Ask as many questions as you can. One of my favorite questions to ask is, what is the ideal candidate for this job, and what is the hardest part about filling this job? Those are questions that you can ask recruiters because it actually gives you information, but it also allows you to highlight why you would be the perfect candidate for the job. And usually we were talking earlier about how certain things are not said. When you're asking those questions, you can get that information from the recruiters, because sometimes recruiters are talking to 20 people during the same day and they might forget telling certain things. It happens. So make sure that you're asking questions. All questions are valid. You're going to spend a lot of time in that environment, so get as much information as you can. And again, there is no way to do it better than talking to a recruiter. Ask them, again, questions.
Cool. Well, speaking of questions, I'd love to have some time to take some from our listeners here. So, Arbaz, is that something that you're going to be able to help us with?
Yes. So come on, guys, ask any questions that you have. A question is, okay, I have a lot of questions. Okay, so what was the bias tool called again? This is called Ask by Ricky. So can you just tell the bias tool that you were talking about?
Oh, Textio. It's Textio. And you can put your job descriptions into it, and it'll tell you if the language you're using is gender biased or other kinds of bias.
Okay. Moving on to the next question. It's by Yara. And she's asking, what do you think is the best company culture that engineers would like to work for when it comes to small businesses?
Dixie, do you have thoughts, or Lamya?
You know, I would say the best company culture, and maybe to kind of take some of the conversation that we've had between us into context, would be where they are able to accomplish something impactful to the business, which is something Rebecca had mentioned. I think that what an engineer should look for is their level of impact, how they could advance their skill set. You know, so aside from delivering the activity that the business needs, I think it is important to be able to personally develop your skill sets. So looking for, again, positioning yourself towards your next career goal will help you to assess if that particular company and what it has to offer is advancing those goals. Because I do think a lot of small businesses today are striving to create environments that are employee friendly, because the hiring process today is brutal. So I do believe, from what I've seen, and you know, I'm working with a lot of small businesses, like hundreds of them in my current capacity, and I really feel like it's a focus for almost everyone I speak to create an environment that's healthy for employee development. So I think what you're seeing is this real shift towards the employee environment, but it then puts the onus back on the individual applying to really self-assess what their career goals are. And I couldn't emphasize that more, because I really think the environment is very employee friendly in a lot of ways. So it really does come back to your individual goals. What are you wanting to get in that next career move? And then maybe asking reasonable questions about how the working structure is at the company that you're applying to. But you really need to be focused on where you want to go next. I think that's a very important starting point to making sure the cultural fit works for you. And I don't know, Rebecca, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's exactly right. I think.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, I think, you know, again, like as a recruiter, I can't tell you what kind of environment is right for you. But what I can tell you is a lot of details about what my environment is like. And what I would rather do is have somebody be really excited. And to your point earlier, Lamya, it's like I'm an in-house recruiter, so I am totally invested in keeping employee retention low. So I want to make sure my candidates know everything there is to know about the culture. So I would much rather have you as a candidate come to me and ask to speak with multiple people on the team outside of the interview process, come in for a lunch, come in for a coffee chat, come in for another tour, just get to sit and shadow somebody for a little bit. I am happy to think of creative ways that I can help my candidates really see what their team is like before they commit their next career move, because I want to make sure it's the best fit for them. So my advice for engineers would be get creative with your recruiter, ask for things that are maybe outside of the box or outside of the typical interview process. That's totally fine. I love thinking of new ways to create a great candidate experience together.
So to go to your question about the culture, a lot of people tend to forget that engineers are extremely creative people because they are also extremely structured. So for me, a culture that would be fostering creativity is the right culture to have engineers. They want challenges, they want to question things. So building a culture for engineers, keep in mind that they need space to express their ideas. They're eager to have feedback, but then that's another topic. It's how to give feedback to engineers. And respect. We're all so different. Just when you're interacting with people, when you're building your company's culture, keep in mind that my story isn't yours, isn't Mickey's, isn't Rebecca's, isn't Dixie's. We all see the world through our own lenses. Just keep that in mind when you're building your culture, and make sure that your employees have a voice in building that culture. So they have a buy-in in it, in other words.
Yeah. Maybe we have time for one more question there, Buzz.
Yes, we do have. So I'll combine a few questions that are around the compensation offered to candidates. So, as a recruiter for your organization, do you think that it is good to be transparent with candidates regarding the salary range that you're offering them? In the meantime, while you answer the questions, guys, all the attendees, we have 2 poll questions for you guys, and you can just vote basis your choices. Over to you guys.
Does anybody want to jump on that one? This is the most common disconnect that we see for sure, is every candidate wants to know the salary up front and almost no company wants to give it. So
I can jump on that really quickly, because this is definitely, it's hard every time, right? I mean, I've been talking with hundreds of candidates, and every time I still feel like it's a very personal question, and it can still be very, hard to approach. Yes, I think it's important to make sure that you're in the same ballpark, right? Whether you want to get into specifics about what the numbers look like, or you just want to communicate what you want your compensation structure to look like, whether you want, more equity or more cash upfront, however you want it to go. That is super important when I'm talking with candidates at the beginning, because it helps me understand if we can even get in that ballpark. Because the worst experience I think you can provide for a candidate and the interview team that I work with, right? All those different people that I connect with, is to spend all of their time and all of the candidates' time getting to know each other, and then realizing that the candidate, just from a life position and financial position, cannot make the move, right? That is definitely the worst experience we can provide. So the more upfront we can be just about what you're expecting, in your next move and what it's going to take for you. Again, it doesn't have to be specific numbers, but at least a ballpark or an idea of the compensation mapping. That is so important, and it's not something that I tie you to. At the end of the day, we're not going to hold you firmly to that decision. It just helps me know if we're in the same ballpark.
Great. Well, I don't know if anybody else has thoughts, but I know we're at our time. Is the poll still going, or?
So yeah, we are out of time. And what we can do is I can take questions, and you can respond back via email, and we'll share all our attendees.
Great.
So we'll switch off
great.
right now. And thank you so much to all the panelists that we had today, Lamya, Miki, Rebecca, Dixie, and also to our attendees who took time out of their busy schedules to be a part of today's session. And we're glad that it was a great session. I personally learned a lot of things, and I hope the audience enjoyed it as much as we did. So, thank you very much once again.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Audience, thank you once again for taking your time, and hope you have a great day ahead. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.